Everyone thought Commander Orion Magnus died when his world was destroyed. Everyone except one machine. For 1,000 years, Atlas 9 protected a mysterious relic hidden on Earth, never knowing what was truly inside. Then a titan capable of consuming stars arrived to wipe out humanity. And in Earth's darkest hour, Atlas 9 uncovered a secret buried for centuries. The commander he mourned was never truly gone. What happened next would decide the fate of an entire solar system. Dark clouds of burning metal drifted across Orion Prime's crimson sky. Explosions rolled across the horizon like distant thunder, while entire cities collapsed beneath an endless rain of fire. Atlas 9 stood motionless atop the observation platform of Citadel Arcturus, watching his world die. The young Autobot warrior was taller than most soldiers, standing nearly 23 feet high, with sleek silver and blue armor designed for speed rather than brute force. His bright azure optics carried a rare kindness uncommon among Orion's military ranks. Unlike many warriors raised for combat, Atlas 9 had spent much of his early existence assisting evacuation units and protecting civilian colonies along Orion Prime's outer territories. Those years had shaped him into someone who valued lives more than victories. Now he watched both disappear. Far below, millions fled through burning streets as Ravager warships filled the sky. The Ravagers had once been machines like the Autobots. Centuries ago, they had served the Orion Council. Then came the Great Schism. A civil war fueled by power, fear, and ambition transformed them into something else entirely. Something monstrous. Atlas's optics followed a distant explosion that consumed an entire defense tower. His chest tightened. The city beneath him had been home. Every street, every memory, every friend, gone. A transmission suddenly echoed through his comm system. Atlas 9, report to Command Chamber 7 immediately. The voice belonged to Orion Magnus. Atlas immediately turned toward the central tower. Even now, hearing that voice brought him comfort. Everyone trusted Orion Magnus. The legendary commander stood nearly 30 feet tall, his armor forged from dark silver alloys lined with glowing gold circuitry. Battle scars crossed his broad shoulders and chest plates, each one carrying the story of a war survived. His faceplate possessed strong angular features that projected authority without cruelty. His blue optics were calm even in disaster. Many younger Autobots viewed him almost as a father, Atlas included. Years earlier, Orion Magnus had personally rescued Atlas during a mining colony attack that killed hundreds of civilians. Since then, Atlas had followed him without hesitation. The corridors leading toward Command Chamber 7 shook beneath nearby impacts. Emergency alarms screamed overhead. Terrified technicians rushed past carrying data cores and navigation systems. One of them nearly collided with Atlas. The technician, a smaller Autobot named Luma 3, barely reached Atlas's shoulder. Her compact white armor was stained with soot and oil. Usually cheerful and energetic, she now looked exhausted and terrified. They've breached the eastern shield wall, she said nervously. The defense fleets are collapsing. Atlas offered a reassuring nod. Though privately, he felt the same fear. By the time he entered the command chamber, the situation had become obvious. The war was lost. Massive holographic displays showed burning continents, destroyed fleets, falling cities, and advancing Ravager armadas. At the center of the chamber stood Orion Magnus. Beside him floated an object Atlas had never seen before. A sphere of golden light suspended within a transparent energy field. The object pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. For a moment, Atlas felt strangely drawn toward it. "What is that?" he asked. Orion Magnus studied the sphere before answering. "Solar Heart." The room became silent. Even Atlas recognized the name. Solar Heart was spoken of only in legends. The final energy source created by Orion Prime's founders. A power so important that entire wars had once been fought over its existence. Orion Magnus looked directly into Atlas's optics. "I need you to listen carefully." Atlas immediately straightened. "The Ravagers are searching for Solar Heart. If they obtain it, every surviving world in this sector will eventually fall." Atlas glanced at the glowing sphere. "You want me to protect it?" "No." Orion Magnus stepped closer. "I want you to carry it to Earth." Atlas froze. Earth? The distant primitive world hidden on the edge of an insignificant star system? Commander, Earth remains undiscovered by the Ravagers. It is our final refuge. Atlas stared at him. The implication struck immediately. This wasn't a mission. It was an evacuation. Orion Prime was finished. For several seconds, neither machine spoke. Outside, another explosion rattled the chamber. The floor trembled violently. Atlas lowered his voice. What about you? Orion Magnus smiled faintly. It was the same smile Atlas remembered from years earlier. Calm, steady, fearless. The fleet needs time. Atlas already knew the answer. No. The word escaped before he could stop it. You can't stay. Orion Magnus placed a massive hand on Atlas's shoulder. For the first time, Atlas noticed how tired the commander looked. Not physically, emotionally, as though he had been carrying the weight of an entire civilization for far too long. Sometimes leadership means staying behind, Magnus said quietly. Atlas felt anger rising beneath the grief. There has to be another way. There isn't. Another explosion illuminated the chamber windows. This one was closer. Much closer. Warning symbols flashed across every display. Enemy forces had entered the capital district. Time had run out. Magnus lifted the solar heart. Golden light reflected across both warriors. Atlas 9. His voice became firm once more. You were never chosen because you are the strongest. Atlas looked up. You were chosen because when others see weapons, you see lives. The word struck deeper than any battle wound. Magnus carefully placed the solar heart into a containment module mounted within Atlas's chest armor. Immediately, the golden pulse synchronized with his internal systems. Like a second heart beginning to beat. You must reach Earth. Atlas struggled to respond. The chamber doors suddenly opened. Evacuation transports were preparing to depart. The final survivors were leaving. Orion Magnus turned toward the battlefield waiting outside. For one brief moment, Atlas wanted to ignore every order. To stay. To fight beside him. To die beside him. Instead, he did what soldiers sometimes hate most. He obeyed. As Atlas boarded the departing transport, he looked back one final time. Orion Magnus stood alone beneath the burning sky of Orion Prime, facing an entire army, and he never once looked afraid. The stars were calm above Earth, but Atlas 9 had learned long ago that peace was often only the silence between storms. 32 years had passed since Orion Prime fell. Atlas stood atop a snow-covered mountain ridge overlooking a remote valley hidden deep within northern Canada. To human eyes, the valley appeared untouched wilderness. Beneath the frozen earth, however, existed one of the most advanced installations on the planet. Sanctuary Base, the last refuge of Orion. Atlas had built it piece by piece over decades. The once young Autobot looked different now. Numerous repairs covered sections of his silver-blue armor. Battle scars crossed his chest plates and shoulders. His optics remained bright, but years of isolation had added a quiet sadness to them. He often wondered whether Orion Magnus had survived longer than expected, whether his commander had suffered, whether Atlas should have stayed behind. Those thoughts never truly left him. A soft voice interrupted his reflections. You're thinking about him again. Atlas turned. Dr. Evelyn Carter stood nearby. At 61 years old, Evelyn was one of the few humans who knew Sanctuary Base existed. She was tall and slender with silver-streaked brown hair tied neatly behind her head. Her sharp green eyes reflected decades of scientific curiosity. Unlike many researchers, she remained calm under pressure. Years earlier, she had lost her husband during a polar expedition accident. The tragedy had transformed her into someone who valued truth more than comfort. She had become Atlas's closest friend, perhaps his only friend. Atlas looked toward the stars. I remember his final order every day. Evelyn offered a sad smile. And every day you continue following it. Before Atlas could answer, alarms suddenly echoed throughout the valley. Both froze. The warning had never activated before. Red symbols erupted across Atlas's vision. Unknown signal detected. Deep space transmission detected. Atlas felt cold fear spread through his systems. Not because of the message itself, because he recognized the encryption pattern. Ravager. Far beyond Earth's orbit, something had found them. Hours later, Sanctuary Base entered full alert. Hidden sensors revealed a disturbing truth. The signal originated from beyond Pluto. Something massive was approaching. Over the following weeks, more evidence appeared. Satellites vanished. Deep space probes stopped transmitting. Unidentified objects crossed the outer solar system. Then came the confirmation. A gigantic vessel emerged from the darkness. The war had found Earth. Inside a Ravager command fortress drifting beyond Neptune stood Tyrant X. He was larger than any machine Atlas had ever encountered. Nearly 40 feet tall, Tyrant X possessed black armor layered with crimson energy veins that pulsed like molten lava beneath steel skin. His face resembled a living war mask with sharp angular features and glowing red optics. Unlike reckless Ravager generals, Tyrant X moved with terrifying patience. He enjoyed strategy. He enjoyed fear. Most dangerous of all, he enjoyed winning. Centuries earlier, he had personally overseen the destruction of 3 planetary civilizations that resisted Ravager expansion. Entire worlds vanished beneath his campaigns. Now he stood before a massive holographic image of Earth. At the center glowed a single golden energy signature. Solar Heart. Tyrant X smiled. After all these centuries, his deep voice echoed through the command chamber. We finally found it. Behind him stood another Ravager officer named Vexor. Unlike Tyrant X, Vexor was lean and agile, built for reconnaissance missions. Dark gray armor covered his narrow frame, while glowing crimson optics constantly scanned for threats. Years serving under Tyrant X had made him cautious, sometimes fearfully so. Our scans confirm Solar Heart remains active. Tyrant XS optics brightened. Prepare the invasion fleet. Meanwhile, Earth remained unaware. Human governments noticed unusual cosmic disturbances, but failed to understand their cause. Only Atlas knew the truth. The war that destroyed Orion Prime was coming. Again, 3 months later, the first Ravager ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Cities across the globe witnessed enormous black vessels descending through storm clouds. Panic spread immediately. Military forces launched defenses. They accomplished almost nothing. The invasion began with devastating precision. Communication networks collapsed. Defense satellites vanished. Entire military installations were destroyed within hours. Inside Sanctuary Base, Atlas watched reports arriving from every continent. The same nightmare. The same fear. The same war. His hands tightened into fists. He had spent 3 decades protecting Earth from the shadows. Now the shadows had arrived. Evelyn entered the command room, carrying fresh data. Her face looked pale. Atlas. He turned. The United Nations estimates millions are already displaced. For several seconds, Atlas remained silent. Then he looked toward the glowing containment chamber where Solar Heart rested. The golden light continued pulsing softly, like a heartbeat, like a memory, like a promise. Atlas suddenly remembered Orion Magnus standing beneath Orion Prime's burning sky. You must protect the planet. The words echoed inside him. This time there would be no evacuation, no escape, no running. Atlas activated the ancient battle systems hidden beneath Sanctuary Base. Deep underground, forgotten machines awakened. Blue energy flowed through ancient Orion technology. The Guardian of Earth was preparing for war. And somewhere beyond the atmosphere, Tyrant XS invasion fleet darkened the sky. A cold rain fell across Washington, D.C. as smoke from distant battles darkened the afternoon sky. 3 weeks after the invasion began, humanity was losing. Atlas 9 stood inside Sanctuary Base's primary command chamber, watching dozens of holographic battle reports update every few seconds. Entire regions of Earth were under attack. Satellite networks had collapsed. Global communications functioned only intermittently. Worst of all, humanity's combined defense fleet was being systematically destroyed. The massive screens showed burning wreckage drifting through orbit. Earth's greatest weapons had barely slowed the Ravagers. Atlas felt the familiar weight of helplessness pressing against his thoughts. It reminded him of Orion Prime. Another world. Another war. Another civilization slowly dying. Dr. Evelyn Carter stood beside him, exhaustion visible beneath her eyes. She had barely slept for days. Her silver-streaked hair was tied hastily behind her head, and coffee stains marked the sleeve of her lab coat. Despite her fatigue, she refused to leave her station. We lost another orbital platform, she said quietly. Atlas lowered his gaze. The casualty numbers continued climbing. Millions displaced. Thousands dead. More every hour. Before he could respond, alarms erupted throughout the chamber. An incoming transmission forced itself through every remaining communication channel on Earth. The image of Tyrant X appeared. Across the globe, billions of people watched. The Ravager warlord filled the screen with terrifying presence. Crimson energy pulsed beneath his black armor like magma trapped beneath volcanic rock. His red optics burned with absolute confidence. He looked less like a machine, more like a force of nature. My name is Tyrant X. His voice echoed across Earth. You believe this planet is my objective? He smiled. You are mistaken. A holographic image appeared beside him. The Sun-human military leaders watching the broadcast immediately became silent. Tyrant X continued. Your star contains enough energy to power a Ravager empire for 10,000 years. Atlas felt dread surge through his systems. No, not the Sun. Tyrant X enlarged the image. Gigantic structures appeared around the star. Ancient harvesting platforms. Planet-sized machines. If Earth resists, Tyrant X said calmly, the extraction process will begin immediately. The room became silent. Everyone understood. Without the Sun, Earth would die. Not from war. From extinction. The transmission ended. For several moments nobody spoke. Then Evelyn whispered the question everyone feared. Can he actually do it? Atlas hesitated. Yes. The answer felt like a death sentence. Over the next 72 hours, Earth's United Defense Fleet launched a desperate counterattack. Every available spacecraft, every remaining orbital weapon, everything humanity possessed. Atlas watched from Sanctuary Base as hundreds of ships accelerated toward Ravager positions beyond the moon. At first, hope returned. Then reality arrived. The battle lasted less than 4 hours. Ravager dreadnoughts annihilated entire formations. Orbital carriers exploded. Cruisers vanished beneath concentrated plasma fire. When the survivors finally retreated, nearly 70% of Earth's fleet was gone. Humanity had suffered its worst military defeat in history. Atlas stood alone afterward inside the solar heart chamber. The golden sphere floated quietly within its containment field. For decades it had remained silent. Mysterious. Unchanging. Now Atlas found himself staring at it. Almost angry. You were supposed to save us. The words escaped before he realized it. Nothing happened. Atlas laughed bitterly, then turned away. Suddenly the chamber lights flickered. He froze. The solar heart pulsed. Once. Twice. 3 times. The golden glow intensified. Atlas slowly turned back. The sphere had never reacted before. Now streams of golden light extended outward across the room. Ancient symbols appeared in the air. Symbols from Orion Prime. His optics widened. Impossible. A voice answered. Not impossible. Atlas staggered backward. He knew that voice. Every memory. Every lesson. Every order. The golden light slowly formed a humanoid figure. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Familiar. Atlas could barely speak. Commander. The holographic figure became clearer. Orion Magnus. Exactly as Atlas remembered him. The same weathered armor. The same calm blue optics. The same expression of quiet strength. For several seconds Atlas simply stared. Part of him believed he was malfunctioning. Part of him wanted to believe. You died. Magnus smiled softly. My physical form died. Atlas's systems struggled to process the revelation. What are you? The final consciousness archive of Orion Prime. The answer shook him. Magnus gestured toward the solar heart. When our civilization faced extinction, the founders created this vessel. Atlas slowly approached. The solar heart contains you. It contains fragments of many minds. Magnus nodded. But I remained active. Decades of loneliness suddenly crashed into Atlas all at once. Every question, every regret, every nightmare. For 32 years he had carried the burden alone. Now the commander stood before him again. Not truly alive, yet not truly gone. Atlas lowered his head. For the first time in decades, hope returned. Outside, humanity continued losing. The sun remained threatened. The Ravagers advanced. But deep inside Sanctuary Base, the last voice of Orion Prime had awakened. And for the first time since the fall of his homeworld, Atlas no longer faced the darkness alone. The moon hung silently above Earth while countless fires burned across the planet below. 3 days had passed since Orion Magnus awakened inside the solar heart. The war had only grown worse. Atlas, 9 stood within Sanctuary Base's central chamber, surrounded by projections of battlefronts from every continent. Entire nations were struggling to survive. Ravager forces continued advancing despite fierce resistance from human armies. Worse still, Tyrant XS stellar harvesting platforms had begun assembling near the sun. Time was running out. Atlas stared at the holographic image of the growing structure. Once completed, it would begin draining solar energy from Earth's star. The consequences would be irreversible. Across the chamber, Orion Magnus stood in his projected form beside the solar heart. Though he appeared solid, faint streams of golden energy constantly flowed through his body. He seemed unchanged from Atlas's memories, yet there was a sadness in his eyes that Atlas had never noticed before. Perhaps death had changed even him. "We cannot win through conventional warfare," Magnus said. Atlas already knew. Earth's fleets were shattered. Its orbital defenses were failing. Every possible strategy led to the same outcome: defeat. "Then what do we do?" Atlas asked. Magnus remained silent for several moments. Then he finally answered. "There is one option." The tone of his voice immediately concerned Atlas. Before Magnus could continue, the chamber doors opened. General Marcus Hale entered. Marcus was the highest-ranking surviving commander of Earth's unified defense coalition. A broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, he possessed weathered skin, steel-gray hair, and a thick beard streaked with white. Years of warfare had carved deep lines across his face. Despite his intimidating appearance, Marcus was respected because he never abandoned his soldiers. 20 years earlier, he had personally carried wounded troops from a collapsed combat zone during the Pacific conflict. Stories of that act still circulated among military personnel. Now exhaustion weighed heavily upon him. "The orbital fleet is gone," Marcus reported quietly. No one looked surprised. Humanity had finally lost control of space. Marcus activated a tactical display. Thousands of Ravager vessels surrounded Earth. At the center floated Tyrant XS flagship. The sight felt overwhelming. Atlas stared at the projection. Even after decades of war, he had never seen an invasion force this large. Then Orion Magnus stepped forward. The founders of Orion created one final safeguard. Golden symbols appeared around him. Ancient designs unlike anything Atlas had ever seen. The solar heart was never simply an energy source. Atlas frowned. What was it? Magnus met his gaze. A bridge. The chamber fell silent. Before Atlas could ask another question, golden energy erupted from the solar heart. The room shook violently. Streams of light wrapped around Atlas's body. His systems immediately detected impossible amounts of power entering his core. Warning alerts filled his vision. "Commander," Magnus smiled. "For thousands of years, I waited for the right guardian." Atlas suddenly understood. "No." The word escaped instantly. Magnus' expression softened. "Atlas, you already became the warrior Orion needed." The golden light intensified. "I only need to become part of him." The realization struck like a physical blow. This was goodbye. Again, Atlas tried to resist, but Magnus raised one hand. The same gesture he had used decades earlier on Orion Prime. The same calm reassurance. The same trust. Then Orion Magnus stepped forward. His form dissolved into countless particles of golden light. The energy entered Atlas's body. Every memory, every lesson, every sacrifice, everything Orion Magnus had been. Atlas screamed as unimaginable power surged through his systems. The solar heart merged completely with his core. Outside Sanctuary Base, shockwaves erupted across the mountains. The Earth trembled. Orbiting satellites detected an enormous energy surge. Golden light exploded into the sky. Then something emerged. Guardian Prime. The Titan stood nearly 100 feet tall. Atlas's silver and blue armor had transformed into radiant, celestial metal covered in glowing gold circuitry. Massive energy wings extended from his back. Ancient Orion symbols flowed across his armor like living fire. His optics burned with both Atlas's blue light and Magnus' golden energy. For the first time in history, two Guardians had become one. Across orbit, Ravager fleets immediately detected the transformation. Tyrant X himself rose from his command throne. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Hours later, the battle began. Guardian Prime launched from Earth. Humanity watched from below as the Titan ascended into space, surrounded by streams of golden energy. The confrontation shook orbit itself. Entire Ravager destroyers exploded beneath Guardian Prime's attacks. Energy wings sliced through warships. Golden shockwaves shattered battle formations. For the first time since the invasion began, Ravager forces retreated. Atlas felt Magnus beside him throughout the battle, not as a voice, not as a ghost, but as part of himself. Together they fought. Together they endured. At the center of the battlefield, Tyrant X finally emerged. The two titans collided with enough force to shake nearby moons. The duel lasted hours. Neither machine yielded. Neither machine retreated. Eventually, Guardian Prime unleashed a devastating energy strike that shattered Tyrant X's armor and crippled his flagship. The Ravager warlord was forced to withdraw. His surviving fleets followed. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth survived a major victory. Yet as Guardian Prime drifted above the planet afterward, Atlas noticed something troubling. Deep within Tyrant X's retreating vessel, faint crimson energy still pulsed. The warlord had survived, and somewhere beyond the darkness of space, he was already preparing for the next battle. The sun burned dimmer than it should have. From orbit, Earth looked wounded but alive. Great scars stretched across continents where battles had raged for months. Thousands of ruined warships drifted through space like forgotten graves. Yet humanity still endured. Guardian Prime floated above the planet, watching. Within the merged consciousness, Atlas, 9 could feel Orion Magnus beside him. Not speaking, not guiding, simply present, like an old friend sitting quietly during a long night. The victory against Tyrant X had bought precious time, but not enough. Deep within Ravager territory, the wounded warlord had not retreated to recover. He had retreated to finish the weapon. The stellar harvest array surrounding the sun was nearly complete. If activated, it would begin draining the star itself. Inside Sanctuary Base, emergency meetings continued day and night. General Marcus Hale stood before a gathering of world leaders. His weathered face looked older than ever. Weeks of war had exhausted even his stubborn determination. The sun is losing energy, Marcus reported. Silence followed. No one wanted to hear the numbers. Solar output had already dropped by 3%. Entire ecosystems would begin collapsing if the process continued. Meanwhile, Atlas and Orion Magnus searched the deepest archives hidden within Solar Heart. Ancient memories unfolded before them. Visions from civilizations older than Orion Prime itself. And finally, they found the truth. The founders had not created Solar Heart as a weapon. They had created it as a seal. A prison. Atlas stared at the ancient records. If this is true, Magnus finished the thought. Tyrant X can be contained permanently. For the first time, hope felt real. But the solution carried a terrible cost. The seal required every remaining unit of Solar Heart's energy. Once activated, nothing would remain. Not the power. Not the archives. Not Orion Magnus. Hours later, Guardian Prime departed Earth. The final battle began near the sun itself. Across millions of miles of empty space, Ravager fleets formed defensive lines around the harvest array. Thousands of warships opened fire. Guardian Prime charged directly through them. Golden wings blazed brighter than solar flares. Entire destroyers shattered beneath waves of energy. Explosions illuminated the darkness like newborn stars. Yet Atlas barely noticed. His attention remained fixed on Tyrant X. The Ravager warlord waited at the center of the array. His armor was damaged from their previous battle, but crimson energy now flowed through him in greater quantities than ever before. The sun itself was feeding him. "You are too late," Tyrant X announced. His voice echoed across the battlefield. "Everything ends today." The duel erupted immediately. Guardian Prime and Tyrant X collided above the solar surface. Shockwaves rolled across space. Energy storms stretched for thousands of miles. Tyrant X fought with desperate fury. Atlas fought with everything he had left. Hours passed. Neither titan yielded. Then Atlas finally saw the opening. The Solar Heart reacted. Golden light spread across Guardian Prime's armor. Orion Magnus appeared one final time beside him. Not as a projection, not as a memory, but as himself. The commander looked exactly as Atlas remembered from Orion Prime. Strong, calm, fearless. For a brief moment, neither spoke. They didn't need to. Atlas already understood. Magnus smiled. The same smile from their last meeting beneath Orion Prime's burning sky. "You were always enough, Atlas." Emotion flooded through Atlas's systems. Loss, gratitude, pride, and love for the mentor who had become family. Then Orion Magnus stepped forward. His form dissolved into golden light. The energy flowed into Solar Heart. The final sequence activated. Tyrant X suddenly realized what was happening. For the first time in history, fear appeared in his crimson optics. No. The prison opened around him. Ancient golden symbols surrounded the Ravager warlord. Chains of energy formed across space itself. Tyrant X fought, screamed, resisted. Nothing mattered. The seal closed. The warlord vanished. The stellar harvest array collapsed moments later. Across the solar system, Ravager forces shut down or fled. The war was over. Guardian Prime drifted silently above the sun. Atlas looked inward. The place where Orion Magnus had always been. Nothing remained. Only silence. The solar heart was gone. Its energy exhausted forever. Months later, Earth began healing. Cities rebuilt. Forests regrew. Children once again looked toward peaceful skies. Atlas returned to his role as guardian. Not ruler. Not hero. Simply protector. One evening, while standing atop Sanctuary Base, he noticed something strange. A new star shone within the night sky. Bright blue. Impossible. Astronomers could not explain its sudden appearance. Humanity gave it a name. Orion's star. Atlas stared at it for a long time. Deep inside, he felt something familiar. Warm. Peaceful. Like a distant voice carried across the stars. For the first time since Orion Prime fell, Atlas smiled. The war was over. But hope remained. And somewhere above Earth, a blue star continued shining as a reminder that sacrifice is never truly forgotten. Sometimes, God does not send miracles the way we expect. Not through perfect victories. Not through easy roads. And not through lives free from pain. Sometimes, miracles arrive through sacrifice. Through a leader who stays behind so others can live. Through a friend who refuses to abandon hope. Through the strength to keep moving forward when everything seems lost. In this story, Atlas, 9 believed he was carrying the last hope of a fallen world. But in the end, he discovered that the greatest power was never the solar heart itself. It was love. It was courage. It was the willingness to protect others, even when the cost was everything. Perhaps that is how God often works in our own lives. Not always by removing every storm. Not always by giving us the answers we want. But by giving us the strength to face tomorrow. By sending people who stand beside us when we feel alone. By reminding us that even in our darkest moments, hope is never truly gone. Every day, people around us are fighting battles we cannot see. Some are carrying grief. Some are struggling with loneliness. Some are quietly holding themselves together while the world expects them to stay strong. Maybe the miracle someone needs today is a kind word, a phone call, a helping hand, a reminder that they are not forgotten. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need hope tonight. Leave a comment below and tell us where you are watching from. We'd love to hear your story. And if you believe that kindness, courage, faith, and compassion still matter in this world, please subscribe to the channel and join us for more inspiring stories. May God bless you, your family, and every gentle soul watching today. May He give you strength in difficult times, peace in uncertain moments, and hope for every new tomorrow. And may His light continue to guide your path, just as Orion's star continued shining in the darkness.